gives me great pleasure today to introduce Dave Roberson. Dave is an O'Fallon, Illinois native and studied computer science and MIS at Rankin and Webster University. From there, he started his career in managed data center services at Concentra, where he helped support enterprise level IT specialists. Then moving to Dallas, Texas to start a career in software consulting is where he found his true passion with working alongside business users to help them get the most value out of their technology. Family led him back to Illinois and eventually started CMIT Solutions of Metro East St. Louis. He's an avid cycler, runner, and alpine skiing when he can get away. He is also involved in the O'Fallon Shiloh Chamber of Commerce. Will you please help me welcome Dave Roberson?
Well, thank you, Carolyn, for the introduction. And thanks everyone for allowing me to come as your guest today and speak in front of everybody. The only thing, I add real quick, that's my family up there. As I mentioned, my favorite getaway is skiing. So that was a couple of years ago, we took the kids to Keystone. And, one of my things about providing economic growth and job opportunities, a couple of years ago, we had the opportunity to rehab a building in downtown O'Fallon, which was a very kind of enjoying project, even though we had to live through all the rehab and construction and asbestos removal and whatnot. So today I'm going to move on and talk about navigating today's cybersecurity landmines. So I'm sure everybody is aware, last week's been kind of a big cybersecurity with our, one of our major pipelines being hacked from outside bad actors. But even on a personal level, everybody really needs to be cognizant of their digital footprint and some things that they can do just to protect their identity as we, every day have these digital lives that we're living. So, what are some of the biggest threats? Phishing or email scams are probably some of the big ones. Or on a personal level, social engineering, we're seeing a lot with the rise of social media and people using things like Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. And then on the business side, going after the ransomware and the malware, where they really are going in and locking up these corporate systems with this ransomware and malware and holding people hostage to either pay for the crypto locker key so that they can unlock their data and get access to it, or they'll just have, if they don't have the right procedures and plans in place, they could be at a loss. So why is this occurring? Well, it might be hard to believe, but there are several cities abroad that this is their #1 industry for economic growth, and they strive off of hacking. And it's really grown in the last few years with the rise of artificial intelligence and machine learning technologies, where they can really kind of mass penetrate multiple areas of the internet. Move on here. So I talked about ransomware. Ransomware is basically a malicious software that will lock or encrypt all of your data unless you put in that one crypto key. It's very similar to kind of, you hear about the cryptocurrencies where you have that digital wallet password. There's that one password will unlock that key and decrypt the data. So up here is just an example where it talks about the Los Angeles Valley College had to pay $28,000 in Bitcoins to the hackers. And just a word of advice, they only accept cryptocurrencies. They don't accept wire transfers or anything like that. So that is how they exploit money out of corporations and individuals. Another one in police departments and municipalities are highly susceptible to ransomware. Especially smaller municipalities tend to not have the resources to put the training and the procedures and the appliances in place to protect from these threats. So this one just talked about where they had the downtown Dallas didn't pay the $4,000 and they were requesting in Bitcoin as well. So talking about some of the things that we as individuals can do, some of the most important things or strong passwords and different passwords for different sites. So I use a product called LastPass, which is a kind of a password keeper, say. So I only have one kind of cryptic password that I have to remember, and then that gives me access to all the different sites and all of my different accounts, and then it auto generates a password, and it's easy to manage because I know everything. We have busy lives, and it's hard to remember a new password for each and every account that we have out there. And I always don't let my browser save my password. I use that product because browsers are very susceptible to hackers and don't turn in auto login and things of that nature. Move on. The next slide talks about multi-factor authentication, or MFA. Techies like to refer to as the acronym. This is where you could use, a second key or factor to authenticate into your accounts. A lot of times they might send you a text message. They'll send you a call with the code, or you can use like a Google Authenticator or an Authy type application. It is like a token key. Like I know some of the bank accounts have that, where every 30, 45 seconds that token is being updated, and that's just your second factor to log in. Detecting phishing. I think I mentioned email is probably one of the most acceptable things. And one thing that I always remind people, especially our digital lives, and we're emailing on our phone and whatnot, a lot of times, you might, oh, this is kind of a funny email, but I recognize the person that it's sending to, and the name looks familiar. I always email this person back and forth. Always go and click on the name of there, because you might notice that their email actually has a different extension to it, or a different domain name, or an extra character in it, and it's actually not that person's email. It's just another email that a hacker is imposing and looking like somebody else. So before you click on links or anything that looks suspicious, I always recommend people, especially it's always good to kind of hear someone else's voice on the other line, to pick up the phone and call that person. And say, hey, is this a legitimate email? Are you really requesting this information, or is this a safe link to click on? And it'll just save you a lot of headache and time, and who knows, it might spark up a good conversation and lead to something else. Check the email signatures at the bottom. Make sure that they look correct, and nothing looks kind of funny. Make sure that the wording doesn't sound cryptic or a little bit different than how that person normally communicates with you. The next one is always kind of updating or backing up your data. If you were to fall victim of a ransomware attack, they can lock up everybody's computer that's on that network if they infiltrated the whole network. So whatever data you have on there, it could essentially be a loss. So always having a backup, and with everything being so cloud-based, it's good that you have that cloud-based backup. It's also good to always maybe have a secondary backup, whether it's an external hard drive or a secondary cloud-based backup off that service. So, because if you do get victim of ransomware and they have not infiltrated the backup system, that's the kind of your fallback of where you'd have to go and your restore point to getting your data back. Additional ways to secure, don't lock your computer when you're walking away. Cover your camera. I'm sure that's been more important than ever the last year, to not see any unwanted things at home that people might want to that might have access to your camera if you're on Zoom meetings. Never send confidential information in email. I'd never send banking information, social security. I always want to make sure I'm talking to a live person and that I've validated that it's a legitimate reason why they're asking for that information. Social media. is big, and I would make sure that you always have your MFA turned on your social media. I'm sure if you start getting a request from a friend that you know you're already friends with that person, it's probably a good idea to go in and check and maybe let that person know that their account has been hacked and somebody's creating a duplicate account and trying to impersonate them, and more than likely they'll try to exploit funds from a family member or a friend. If you're entering any personal information and credit card, make sure that your website has that HTTPS at the end of it, and that just means that there's another layer of security on that web page when you're entering payment information. I'll skip on to the next one here. So why is it important for businesses to stay secure? So it's predicted that by 2021, cybercrime will become a $6 trillion annual industry. On average, probably every 39 seconds, there's some type of attack that's successfully breaching some type of system. 1 in 323 emails are sent to small business are malicious. And you may have spam filters on or other different things in place to try to filter those bad emails out, but they do always get through. So it's always important. I really harp on email. And over 80% of cybersecurity breaches can be traced back to human error. So this is probably one of the biggest things that we talk to our customers. It is a time investment, and it is a small financial investment. But really, in training the people within your organization of what the threat landscape is out there and how to, avoid these things. And I'm not trying to, scare people, but the more that you're knowledgeable about what's going on out there, the better you'll be able to react if you're ever in one of these situations. And then 60% of small businesses go out of business within 6 months if they've had a full cyber attack breach. And of course, I'm sure everybody is probably aware with the increased digital presence, it's been quite on the rise since the COVID-19. So I kind of left it brief and short and didn't get into too level technical details like we do more on our cybersecurity training. But I did kind of want to open up the floor for any questions that people may have pertaining to cybersecurity and how we can kind of protect ourselves. Yes? Yep. So I mean, any cloud-based solution, you're putting your trust into to another third-party provider, right? So most of our clients are on Office 365 today. We back it up on a third-party product, Barracuda, as well. So it's sitting in the cloud twice. But we would also, recommend that they have an external hard drive sitting in their office as well that is backing that data up as well. Back there. A lot of it's because they're unwilling or unable to pay for the ransom, and they lose their data. These hackers have gotten much smarter now. I think an average attack is over 90 days. So they're getting in and they're learning the value of the data and understanding, what that should be worth for the business. And then when they lock it down, some businesses don't pay it. And then if they lose all their customer lists or all their billing history, or if they have other proprietary, intellectual property that might be on there that they're losing, it can just be really hard to recover from that. And especially at the small business level, some people might just say that it's too much to rebuild that customer list or. Mm-hmm. I mean, that is the correct approach and recommended approach. it is a business decision when it comes down to it. And I mean, you've seen large hospitals pay ransom, because they have very highly valuable data, and a lot of other organizations.
Interesting now, the one who got that was the bottom of the email that we had a portion of an email that we had sent to one of our vendors. So they had one of our vendors and got all their information, and then they had our email on the bottom, and they sent us personal information not for the so here's the information it's not for, but it has a good cost. And we're extremely cautious because also like that, my people would like to do, like on a monthly basis, for this coming out of our picture, about what they cannot do, or, they had to put them in a zip file.
Yeah, zip files are very acceptable. PDFs are actually easy to cause malicious behavior. So yeah, thanks for sharing those stories, because it's good to hear them. Go ahead, right here.
There used to be on DOS a command you could give to copy everything in your computer.
Okay.
Is there such a command now with system?
So if the quickest way would be an image-based backup of your probably your C drive, and then if you have external drives or map drives that are on that same disk off that C drive, included that. But there's a difference. The key there is there's a difference from taking an image and then just backing up data and files, right? So that image still has the OS on it, and you should be able to be up and running. Now, if something got infiltrated in that OS and the OS was corrupt, then it's a much more lengthy process of rebuilding that OS and then extracting the data and rebuilding it that way.
But you take just the data, you can do pretty safely.
Yeah. Especially if you're talking, you always got to understand what you're protecting, right? If it's mostly files, pictures, documents, file level storage is good. If you're intellectual property, so coding and software and different things like that is where image-based and other type of backup solutions are probably needed.
This Barracuda, you can use that. You said you use that.
So Barracuda is our spam filter. It acts as an additional spam filter, and then it also backs up your Microsoft 365 accounts, or it'll back up like a G Suite email if you have one of those. And then if you get to their higher level plan, they have a kind of an additional thing. It's called Sentinel Agent. It's basically a machine learning AI agent that's running in there, and it'll learn your behaviors on the email. And then if you have an abnormal behavior, it would alert you. Back there in the picture. So a good product, an alternative to Barracuda at a good price point is Proofpoint. We've looked at that product before. Antivirus and DNS filtering, we're currently using WebRoot. There's several others out there, Semantic, and they're all, when you're talking about those types of products, they're pretty affordable products. When you get into the machine learning and the AI type products, they're newer, so they're still a little bit more expensive. And then on the backup side, things like Veeam as a cloud-based backup solution we use a lot, or StorageCraft is another one. Get back there in the corner.
It's really your employees, and you have to just continue training and even common sense things. The company this calendar year, I work for a 785 employee company, and somebody in the HR department got an email that appeared to come from her boss, who was sitting 20 feet away. Even though the company had all their things in place, it said this external source. It asked her to she needed to send her their payroll.
Yeah.
So, since the boss asked for it, person sent somewhere 85 information, birth dates, social security numbers to another email. That person wasn't much of a genius to ask for that.
No.
They just found right.
I mentioned that the training of the employees is probably one of the biggest things, and it's one of the less expensive things to do. It's more of a time commitment, from the employees. The online training programs they have now that you can go through and do that are pretty simple and easy to use and inexpensive. And then we will run, like, if everybody familiar with what white fishing is called, white hat fishing. So that's where we will simulate phishing attacks. And that's another affordable solution at small, mid-sized businesses. If you're getting into higher value companies, doing regular vulnerability or penetration testing, or even simulated social engineering testing, are options out there. But those three options do tend to be on the higher end of the investment scale. Yes.
So the obvious problem is there's no consequence. There's no consequence. So when somebody can do something about that, we can go to a
Oh, that is a deep question there. Because you're gonna.
That's a national. I don't.
They don't have jurisdiction. I mean, if we start dropping into other people's countries and taking out towns that are hacking, it's the best way is if you could just cut off the funds and not pay the ransom. I think that would probably be the most impactful way, but people are paying these ransoms. And then you have the whole other of selling data as well online is another way. Over here. Okay, right here.
So how does ransomware insurance work?
How does ransomware work?
No, ransomware insurance.
Ransomware insurance. Well, there's different levels of ransomware insurance, and I have a few clients that we work together on their cyber liability insurance policy. But if you did have a breach, the provider would get involved. They would help determine, do you have a point of recovery? How long is it going to take? What is that ransom? And then they'll kind of help, if the ransom is kind of small and it would be cheaper and more effective from a business solution to pay the ransom and move on. A lot of times that insurance policy might even pay that ransom.
Comment on this pay breach and cyber liability, newer coverage last 2 years, but it's definitely the small and medium market. Definitely some money being available. And a lot of people, we have to sign off.
In simple cyber liability insurance, it's not a crazy investment. We've gotten my industry has gotten hit really hard in the last year because managed service providers have been highly attacked and they've been infiltrated. We have almost 200 clients, so if they got into our systems, then they would theoretically possibly get into 200 other networks. So we've seen huge jumps in our E&O and cyber liability policies over the last year.
I have another one.
Go ahead. Yep.
So Kai, thanks for that answer. When there's ransomware in Bitcoin, okay?
Although they'll take Ethereum or they'll probably Dogecoin or whichever other one that they can take and.
The next question was what happened to clothing factor?
And it's funny because prior to CMIT, I was very involved in the energy world at an IT perspective, and I haven't read enough about it to comment on what happened exactly. They're a pretty large company. They probably have several different systems in place, but clearly they weren't prepared to prevent that from happening.
So is it possible, I was talking to Jay about this, all these attacks come from typically. So the technology we have, financial resources, way the government's that if there is communication coming in from overseas, that has to go through the client process. Even whether it's from your Aunt Sophie in Italy that sends you an email, or from the Russian hackers, that it has to go through a whole system. And when it comes into your email system, your communication, it says this originated from an out-of-country origin. I mean, is that impossible to do with that sort of a shield up? Because this is not going to get any easy.
Yeah.
It's not going to go away. And I don't know. I mean, can you identify communication?
So one of your challenges with a lot of these bigger companies, whether it's Gmail, Yahoo Mail, AWS, that they're geo-redundant sites all over the country where that data is being replicated. So you might have a server, an email server sitting here in St. Louis, and that it's being geo-redundant in the Netherlands. So that and they do that for multiple reasons. That there's data that is data heavy. That needs to be sent to somewhere in Europe, they might extract that data from those servers in the Netherlands. So there's multiple different challenges there. We're seeing, is anybody in here familiar with the NIST framework at all? So that would be kind of like the government body that helps for cybersecurity. And from NIST, things like PCI or HIPAA, or DFARS or the new CMMC, and some of those acronyms may sound familiar because they're more, cybersecurity policies and kind of how to have good cybersecurity hygiene for a specific industry.
Hello.
I wish I had an easier answer there, but I don't. There's it's a multi-factored, layer question there. It's way above my pay scale.
Hey, Brian, it would be much easier for the government to just develop a system that would send a smartphone over wherever.
Take out a lot of
I mean, the other challenge you have is the time that it takes for governments to develop and actually put systems into use. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate your time.
Dave, on behalf of the Tasovsky family and the home nursery, I'd like to present you with this centerpiece.
Thank you.
Thank